Hello peeps, this is from Helpless to Hero. My name's Sparky and this is a new series I'm doing, all to do with laying the foundations of building characters within the game Skyrim. So to start off with, we're going to look at Nord warriors. Nords make the best warriors, for they get plus 10 to two-handed weapons, plus 5 to one-handed. They get increased block, smithing, speech, light armor. So this makes them perfect for what we're going to be doing today. They also have a racial power called Battle Cry, which makes all nearby foes flee for 30 seconds, which can be really great for getting out of tight situations. They also have 50% frost resistance, which is great if you're fighting against frost Atronachs, dragons or ice mages, and it's even better when fighting the Draugr or Draugr, I'm not quite sure how you pronounce it, when you're down in the barrows in the tombs, as they almost exclusively use frost spells. The magic ones do anyway. So, stats. You're looking about 60% for health, 40% for stamina. Don't bother putting any points in Magicka. It's not really worth it because you won't be using it. And the primary skills you want to be looking at when you level to put perks in are one-handed and block. They're the first two things you want to be leveling up. The secondary skills you want to look at are light armor and archery. Now light armor your skill in that will go up as you play the game. There's probably not an awful lot you can do about that other than reading books to improve that skill going up. Archery, it's not that important, but it would be nice to have a few points to improve the amount of damage that you can do with bows, just for when there's a lone sniper on a bridge or on a tower that you can't quite get to melee combat and you need to take him out. Okay, so Blessing Stone. First one you want to get is Warrior, because that will increase the speed in which you gain skills that will help you progress. But once you've got a decent amount of that, you might want to switch. You might want to switch up a bit. There's the Lady Stone, which regens health and stam 25% faster, which will be incredibly useful at later levels. And there's also the Lord Stone, which gives you a 40 points of damage resistance and 25% magic resistance, which can also be very, very useful in later levels. So there are two other stones you might want to have a look at once you get into the later levels of the game. Now the other blessings you want to take a look at are the ones from the temples. From the Temple of Kinnereth you can get an extra 25 stamina. From the Temple of Stendarr you can get a plus 10% block. And from the Temple of Arkay, which I believe is sometimes in the Hall of Death or Hall of the Dead in some of the cities, you can get an extra 25 health. Now these also come as talismans or necklaces that you can also wear, so not only can you get the 10% block from having the Blessing of Stendarr, you can also get the Necklace of Stendarr, which will also give you another 10% block, which is amazing. So those are the three that I recommend that you take if you're playing this particular role. Okay, so essential perks for while you're playing through the game. First one, Armsman in one-handed. This will give you 5 ranks, increasing the amount of damage you do with one-handed weapons. Fairly standard, but incredibly useful. The second one in one-handed is called Fighting Stance. So power attacks with one-handed weapons cost 25% less stamina. It's essential. You need to have that if you're going to be playing with a one-handed weapon, because those power attacks can mean all the difference between coming away from the fight alive or dead. The choice is yours. So in block, which is the second of your primary skills you want to be looking at, the first one you want to take a look at is Power Bash, so it gives you the ability to do Power Bash. Secondly, you want to look at Disarming Bash, because then that gives you a chance to disarm your foe, your enemy, as you're fighting, which can, especially if you're fighting someone with a two-hander, that can be really, really useful. And the third one in block is Elemental Protection, which reduces incoming fire, frost and shock damage by 50%, which, if you're fighting a caster, is amazing. Really good. Really, really good. And the last of the essential perks that we're looking at is in light armor, and it's called Agile Defender. Now there's 5 ranks of this as well, and with the 5th rank increases the armor rating of your light armor by 100%. So that's a ton more armor you're getting as well, which adds to your survivability, which you can't really argue with that. So for weapons and armor, it should be fairly self-explanatory by now. One hand and a shield with light armor, bows and arrows for backup and pulling. Using line of sight is really useful, and using arrows to pull enemies towards you is also very, very useful for this setup. Now you might be thinking, what followers do I take? Well, I have 3 examples for you right now. First one being Faendal from Riverwood, as he's one of the first you will come across in your adventures through Skyrim. He's an archer, and he will do very well at range. So while you're up front, he can be at range, firing arrows, taking people out. The other one I would suggest is Janassa. She's a dark elf for hire in Whiterun. And the third one is Mercurio, who is a mage for hire in Riften. Now, if you don't fancy having an archer, maybe you prefer having a wizard with you. Either way, it doesn't really make any difference. At the end of the day, you want a ranged follower to do the damage while you're up front. So for the playstyle, you want to decide where you want the fight to take place and make sure you've got plenty of room for manoeuvre. Maybe have your back against a wall to prevent being surrounded, because shields can't block attacks from behind. Maybe use the bow or line of sight to get the enemies to come to you. When you're fighting packs of 4 or 5 enemies, which could happen, try bottlenecking them into corridors and hallways, so that you don't have to worry about hitting 1 or 2 or having 1 or 2 hit you at a time rather than all of them at the same time. If things get really out of control, don't forget to use your racial battle cry so that you got time to reposition yourself. You can heal or even run away if you have to. If it gets that bad, there's no shame in running away if you live to fight another day. Yeah. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you very much for watching. These are just guidelines. These aren't rules. You don't have to stick to these. That's one of the beauties of Skyrim, is that there is no specific class creation at the beginning. You can just choose whatever you want. You can put a point in perks, whatever you like, it doesn't matter. But I'm just making these videos as a little pointer, as a little guideline. Maybe you haven't tried this type of class before, maybe you're new to the game and you want some pointers as to which way to go to get the best out of your race or your class. So I hope you've enjoyed watching it. I hope you stick around for the next one. Thank you very much. Goodbye.